our guest, Kathleen Hudson. Hi, Kathleen.
Hi, good to see you.
Nice to see you. It's nice to see anybody. It seems like we've been so cooped up.
So true. Very true.
What's coronavirus time been like for you in the past 4 or 5 months?
It has meant a lot of time with the kids. I have a 10-month-old daughter and I have a 5-year-old son. So we've been going on lots of walks, getting out of the house, and then I try to paint when I can from 8 p.m. when they're both down until sometimes 2 in the morning. But that happens, but probably too few times. So I have not painted a whole lot in the last few months.
So your
but I'm
5-month-old,
trying to look at the bright side, which is lots of family times.
your 5-month-old must think that people wearing masks is normal.
She does. Well, and she is afraid of everyone who's not immediate family because she thinks that something is wrong when she meets someone who she's unfamiliar with. So
Yeah.
hopefully she'll grow out of that quickly.
Yeah,
We'll
I
take
would
her to a
think
plein
so.
air event. That'll get her
I would
sorted.
think so. So, Kathleen, what are you going to do for us today?
I was going to leave that up to folks who are watching the live stream. So I have
Okay.
a few options for a painting, and
Okay.
they're different types of landscapes since that's my specialty. But I'll let you all pick whether you want a cloudscape, whether you want water, a waterfall. There are some options. So
I'm going to pick.
Okay.
Because if people want to put something in the comments, they can. But I painted a waterfall yesterday and I struggled. So this is perfect timing. And after all, it's just all about me, right?
Well, I get a lot of requests for waterfalls, and so I'm sure you would not be alone. So I'll do a waterfall.
Well, now they're starting to chime in. Waterfall. Okay. One person says waterfall.
Okay.
So they're
Well, you got
starting to tune in. You've got somebody in Netherlands, in The Hague. Hello, Gerda. And let's
Hi
see,
there.
we'll have a lot of people starting to chime in from a lot of different places around the world. So I'll tell you as they come in. But first, what we're going to do is I'm going to step away for a second and make some announcements, and then we'll return. Kathleen Hudson is going to do waterfalls. This is exciting.
Great.
All right, we'll be back in a minute. Well, here we are, day number 163. I'm exhausted. I'm not exhausted from being on for 163 days in a row. I love that. I just took a 2-hour hike in the woods. We are literally in the wilderness. We're on a lake, but everything behind us is wilderness, and it probably goes on for 200, 300, 400 miles of just nothing but wilderness. And so I was out hiking in the wilderness, in the trees. It was beautiful, and maybe one day I'll show you some pictures I took this morning if I could figure out how to get them off my phone and get them on here for you guys. But so it's nice to get some exercise and to get out and remember what I've been saying. If you've not been with me every day, or if you've not been with me at all, please know that the reason we're doing this is because of lockdown, right? We wanted to keep everybody's head in the right place. Some of you are in lockdown, some of you are not. Some of you are in a hybrid of, in between. People around the world are in different situations. And we want to keep you positive and upbeat and feeling good about yourself and feeling good because you're doing something that you love. And so many of you are artists. Many of you want to be artists. Many of you want to learn art. So this program every day at 12 noon on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and other places is for you. We want to make sure that we're giving you things that will keep you interested. Also, I'm going to be taking a year from this week, actually, Labor Day weekend. We're going to be heading to Russia next year, right after Labor Day weekend. And we're going to be painting in St. Petersburg, in Moscow, and most importantly, in all the small little old villages with the old dashas and the old chapels and just really, really beautiful, the old costumes and people. And so it's a phenomenal trip. It's something I've been trying to do for years now. And so it's going to happen next year. We're going to take 50 people. That's all we can take. And we don't have the pricing up, but you can go and apply to be part of it. And we say apply because we just have to make sure you're healthy, because we're going to be in some small villages, and we're in the places we're going to be, they won't have things like accessibility for people who might be handicapped and so on. So we have to make sure that this is a fit for you and for us and for them, of course. And so that's going to be taking place. Also, I should remind you that speaking of Russia, the great Russian master Nikolai Blokhin has done a video with us, and it's going to be coming out here in just a few weeks. And you're not going to want to miss that. That's pretty incredible. All right. So now we're going to get back to Kathleen Hudson. Remember her new video that we're celebrating the release today. It's called Clouds in Distance. And it's pretty phenomenal. And she's a great teacher. So now you're going to learn about this a little bit. She's going to do a little demo for us today. And she's going to do, let's see if I can find her here. Oh, I know you're on. I had the screen blocked with the other. I'm sorry. Well, hi, Kathleen.
Hello.
So, we've seen a lot of you lately, which was nice. We had you on Realism Live. We talked about issues that women face as painters, and you did a great job with that. You talked about your life of juggling your relatively newborn, right? Would you say 5 months?
Well, she's 10 months now.
Oh, 10 months now.
But it feels like 5 months. I mean, it's
Yeah, I get it. Well, 10 months is still
been a time warp.
Yeah. And is she walking yet?
She's close.
Oh,
she's
good.
pulling up and kind of sidestepping, holding onto furniture. So she's a little early in the game. But
those are fun. Well, girls usually get that stuff done earlier than guys.
She's quick, and she said "daddy." That was her first word about a month ago. And
he must have melted.
She's not interested in any other word. She just likes saying "daddy." So my husband is thrilled.
That's nice. And she probably hears her brother saying it all the time, right? Daddy, daddy, daddy,
that
daddy.
too. Yep.
So, tell us a little bit about this new video that you've got, Clouds in Distance.
Yes, it is a painting that came out of a plein air event, like many of my paintings. In 2016, I went to Plein Air Rockies, which is in Estes Park, Colorado. So I spent the whole 2-week long event in the Rocky Mountain National Park painting. And during the course of plein air events, I'm usually really bad about taking reference photos, but I ended up having a full day at the end of the event where I could go out and just do nothing but take photos. So I drove all through the park, took hundreds of photographs, and happened upon this storm. And it was such a dramatic scene. It's the kind of thing that you can't really paint that easily in person because there were thunderstorms going overhead the entire day that I was out there taking photos. So I was able to hop in and out of my car, take photos, and then get out of there when the lightning hit. And so I was able to paint that not long afterwards as a study, which I found really helpful since I was able to remember some things that the camera missed. But then I got to paint that as a demonstration for a DVD later on too. So yeah. I am happy to share with you all what I enjoyed painting about, about those dramatic clouds and creating a story, almost a narrative out of the landscape by bringing in some of those atmospheric components. Yeah, you can see the painting there. So the clouds created a shadow pattern on the ground. There's so much atmosphere involved with a heavy storm like this that you can use that to send the successive mountains right back into the distance. So I enjoyed talking about that one as I was painting it, and I hope you all enjoy it if you get to watch the DVD.
Okay, so what's the key to painting waterfalls?
For me, I find that waterfalls are often most simply a value study. When you look at your photographs that you've taken of falls, there might be some colors in the rocks depending on the local geology. There might be, some interesting kind of rainbow effects to the water, but mostly it's just a matter of grayscale. And so I do a really thoughtful underpainting when I paint waterfalls, where I will have almost a finished looking painting in different neutral tones. And I try to make it transparent so that I keep some of that luminosity where you can see the canvas underneath the transparent paint layer. And so that's what I'll start out with. And I do that with most of my paintings anyway, unless it's a really light colored skyscape that I have to paint right over. I will start out with the transparent underpainting.
And will you do that when you're on location too?
I do. it actually saves time because it's almost like having a chance to fine tune the drawing, figure out the composition. I do the thumbnail sketches as well for that with a larger painting typically. But yeah, but the underpainting is such a big help. I've never regretted it. And you'll often see sections of that underpainting in my final work, where the darks are transparent anyway. So it doesn't matter if I painted something as an underpainting or not, it's the same effect. So
So do you do underpainting in oil or do you do it in acrylic?
I do it in oil. Everything is in oil. The thing about underpainting in oil, I do want to remind folks, unless you are going to let it dry and paint over it with an entirely new layer, you leave that white in the tube. Do not dig into your white. The point of the type of underpainting that I do is to be a transparent layer that should almost start to tack up as you're painting over it. And you should be painting over it with enough paint that you're not having to scrub it in. If you're using enough paint, your brushstroke will just lay right down on top of what you have for the underpainting. So okay. And I'll go through step by step and show how I do that, just to make sure that the canvas is, it's set up enough that you don't wind up with a mess on your hands. But the key thing is to remember not to involve any opaque paint. Leave that in the tube. You can start out with the transparents and take it from there.
All right. Well, it looks like you've got a pretty big canvas up there. That's industrious for the.
Yes. Well, for an underpainting, it goes quickly. It's surprising how quickly it goes. I wanted people to be able to see it. So yeah, here's a finished waterfall painting. This is an 11 by 14, so it's significantly smaller. Let me see if I can.
Can you hold it? Yeah, well, it's getting some glare. That's
yeah, beautiful. Let's see. Got it kind of backwards here. Is that?
Yeah, you can see it.
So this is, wait, where is this? I'm trying to remember. Oh, it's Gross Waterfalls in Glacier. So it is it's way zoomed in. I mean, that's another thing with waterfalls. You want to be extra mindful of the composition. Don't try to paint the whole thing. I'm going to do another partial waterfall today and even invent some stuff. So it's, it's a mashup of rocks and water. So you can kind of make things up if you like. So yeah, you can see here, there are actually sections of an underpainting visible, but it doesn't look like an underpainting. It just looks like a transparent dark, which is how I like it anyway. So, yeah, I started off with the underpainting, and that took only about 30 minutes. And then from there, it was all a matter of pushing and pulling things, building up some paint layers, creating some interest with some foliage. And so I'll do something a little bit similar today.
All right. Well, I'm going to let you get started. I'm going to put you on full screen so we can see you in full.
All right.
All right.
Okay. Well, the underpainting colors that I use are ultramarine blue and transparent red oxide. So I'll repeat that a couple times later on for folks who are joining us. But I'm not going to show my palette for this because there's not much point since it is just a neutral color. So I have some Gamsol over here, and I have a goat mop brush from Rosemary. And I will get the brush wet, pick up some of the transparent neutral, and just go all over. This is to kill the white on the canvas.
So this is a combination of transparent red oxide and ultramarine to create a neutral color.
That is true. And so, and I can adjust things if I want it to look a little warmer. Say that my overall cast to my painting is warm, I can add more of the transparent red oxide. That's the benefit of using something like this as opposed to a single neutral color like ivory black, or I know some folks do like a burnt umber or raw umber underpainting, and that works too. It's the same, it's the same idea. But I do like using the blues and the the reds to go ahead and indicate some color temperature shifts, even before I get started with with the main color. So I'll go ahead and kill all the white on the canvas, bring it to kind of a mid-tone. And it's going to stay wet enough that I can come in and wipe out highlights with the paper towel. I use the paper towel almost as a paintbrush to lift things out. So So this is the 20 by 24 canvas. Pretty big for a short demo, but we'll just focus on the underpainting section of it because that's the most influential part in painting waterfalls. Again, remember, it's mostly a value study, so pay attention to your values, and at the end, the rest of it can more easily fall into place. So I'm looking at several different waterfall images, and I'm actually going to do a mashup. Most of these falls are from Glacier National Park, but I'm not tied into doing an exact copy of something. This is going to be more about light and shapes than it is a portrait of a specific place.
It looks like you're using blue shop towel, which is what I use. Is that right?
Yes. Well, and that's the thing. Even the Viva paper towels, which are good, when I'm using them for these underpaintings, where I will come in and wipe out. Let's say I've got part of the fall coming down here, wipe out highlights. It will even the Viva towels start leaving a little residue. These will take a beating though. So.
Well, last night I painted with Viva because I didn't have another roll of blue towel, and I could tell a big difference in the absorbency.
Yes.
So they are more expensive, but they really work beautifully. And I agree, they're sturdy so that you can use them to wipe out.
Yeah, and that is a huge, huge help. So I've got the top of the falls coming down. So this is going to be a painting that has no sky visible. It's going to be the bottom half of the falls. And the part that I like best about waterfalls it's where the water kind of meets the rocks at the base of the fall, because it kicks up all of this mist. There's so much interest in atmosphere in that section of a waterfall that usually if I'm going to crop something down, that's where it happens.
So are you painting in a little Gamsol or something there?
I just got this Gamsol on my brush, and I'm bringing out some of the highlights, and then I'll go back in and drop down lowlights. So it'll start looking like a painting pretty quickly in this process, just because it is, a waterfall isn't going to shift the colors that dramatically. So over here, there's some rocks coming out, and those are going to be a slightly different value from the waterfall itself. One thing I'll have to decide on, the pictures I'm using are from different times of day, so the light is in different places. And that's something you really want to be mindful of. If you're committing to painting a waterfall, you want to have everything have a consistent lighting. So if you're using a couple of different references you've taken, then make sure they're either from the same time of day, or you land on one lighting scheme and then just add in details from others without changing the overall time of the light, because that will get you into trouble.
Well, what's nice about this too is it's giving your whites a little bit of warmth.
It is.
So you don't necessarily have to put paint in right away to give them warmth. That's what I was struggling with last night.
Yes. Well, and when you start laying in some of the blue grays that you see, that color, the blue grays can start looking chalky really easily. Titanium, which is what most of us probably use landscape painting, tends to make colors look chalky anyway. And one thing I'll show you, I may not have time to get the full painting done since it is a 20 by 24. One thing I will show you though is how I go in and get a sense of luminosity in some of these highlights using titanium white, but with Indian yellow as sort of a part way, or as a way to almost create a glazing effect with wet paint. And Indian yellow is a beautiful yellow. It's completely transparent. And I use the Michael Harding brand. It does vary a lot from brand to brand, so that's one thing you'll want to test out. But I love it because it's as bright as a cadmium when you mix it with some titanium.
So did you prepare that panel in any way, or did you just take it, it's basically a panel that was oil primed or acrylic primed?
It is just an oil primed panel, and I'm not having to do a whole lot to it. It's because it's oil primed, it's not absorbing the paint, so I can bring out highlights like that. If it were not, I would end up in some trouble. Michael Harding does make a non-absorbent acrylic primer, but you have to apply it yourself. And I found a couple of brands that have acrylic primed canvases that don't sink in terribly right off the bat that you could probably use with an application like this. But for the most part, those are a little bit harder because your paint will sink in.
Well, archivally, we know that oil will last. We don't know whether or not acrylic will.
Yeah, it's a newer.
It's only 50 years old.
that is true. Yeah, and I just don't like using acrylic in general because it tacks up too quickly. I like taking my time and adjusting edges and things. As you can see here, I'm changing things right as I go. And so the longer it stays wet, the happier I am. So I can brighten those highlights in places by pulling more Gamsol on. I'm still using this towel as an eraser. And one thing I try to remind myself is to stand back regularly and take a look at it.
I was having trouble doing that last night because I was balancing on rocks.
Oh,
and
yeah.
And I was like standing one foot on one rock and another foot on another, and I couldn't back up without it. I was in the middle. I was literally in the water, just standing on tops with water around me, so I couldn't back up. It was very
One
frustrating.
of my most embarrassing painting moments happened because of me trying to step back and take a look at a painting. I was at Plein Rockies actually. That was an eventful week. But I was painting at Sprague Lake and had just finished a big 16 by 20, and then all these people came by on this boardwalk around the lake. And they stopped to look at my painting, and I thought, well, I should take a look too. So I had forgotten that this entire time I had done this 16 by 20, I had to remember not to step back because there was a 3-foot high boulder right behind me and then the edge of the lake. So it was, I could have gotten wet. And so, yeah, these folks came up to look at it, and I turned around and then stepped back and totally forgot about the boulder. And fell over the boulder, ended up with my legs in the air. It was really, really dignified. and I started laughing so hard, I was almost in tears. I mean, I just knew how funny it looked. And of course, they were this whole group of 12 people were all worried about me, but it was more my ego that was bruised than anything else. But yeah, don't get distracted by onlookers. That's the moral of that story. So I'll go ahead and start bringing in some more darks here. And so what I'll do, I'll just use the same goat hair mop, and I dry it off. If I have really wet paint with Gamsol going onto this, it's just going to end up really slick. Right now, because I took the paper towel over that initial wash that I did and rubbed it out, it's actually sunk in mostly. I mean, I can still pick it up pretty easily with some Gamsol, but if I lay down regular paint over this, it's not going to come up on my brush. So I'm going to make sure this is kind of dry and then use it to scrub in some more of that transparent underpainting color. And that, again, is ultramarine blue and transparent red oxide. And these are both the Michael Harding version. So the first thing I do is I think, where is the darkest dark? And in this painting, there's a rock face right here. Down here, it's reflecting some of the light from the water, and it's wet, so it's more reflective. This is going to be the base of the falls, a section of a creek that meets the base of the falls. And that's picking up reflected light from the sky, so this is not going to be our darkest dark. When I look at this, I see the darkest dark as a shadow area right behind here. I've got it pretty much on the warm side, but I want to keep it neutral or cool even. So I'll add some more blue to it. And then I'm going to feather it in so that it comes to the edge of where that fall sweeps.
Why are you feathering it in?
It's a soft edge because waterfalls, there are very few places in a waterfall where you're going to have a really hard edge. Maybe here at the top of this rock, because the rock is in front of the falls. Maybe there's a rock, kind of a rock over, a rock that crops out here, and that can be kind of a hard edge. But here, there's not a hard line between where the water is coming down and where it stops, because there's some sections, there's some mist kicked up on the edge. And so that's going to be a softer edge. And I want to be thinking about that even at this stage of a painting. I don't want to end up with all hard edges. I don't, I can go ahead and start thinking about some of the edges as I'm creating shapes. The other good thing about not getting your edges too hard at the outset is if I'm concentrating on creating a very exact hard edges, then I'll be tempted to paint in the lines later on. And I want to leave it a little bit malleable. I don't want to feel like I'm locked into this exact design. What I'll do is I will be looking at it in a mirror later, so I can see it in reverse. And that helps me decide on some of my design changes. If something jumps out at me and looks wrong in the mirror, then it's probably something that I need to change.
Hey, since this is a holiday weekend, folks, you guys need to all go find a waterfall. There's a waterfall nearby. If not, you can Google waterfall, and I'm sure you can find one.
Yeah, find a good image. One of my friends, Michelle Held, lives in South Florida, and she really wanted to go paint a waterfall after we'd gotten a chance to talk about it and paint, and she saw one of mine and thought, oh, I could try that. And of course in South Florida they don't really have a whole lot of waterfalls, but she had a brilliant idea, which was to go find a putt-putt golf area with a really great water feature, and she did.
What a great idea.
That was one of my favorite stories I'd heard about waterfall painting. So yeah, putt-putt.
I have, when we do our Adirondack event, we have probably 7 or 8 really magnificent waterfalls that we go to every year. And and every time I turn around, I'm discovering a new one.
Oh yeah, that is a gorgeous place to paint. It's on my list. I haven't been there.
We had 2 years ago, we had I heard about this waterfall. I saw this painting this guy had done in a gallery, and I asked him where it was. He told me where it was. And so we go there, and there's a gate, and they said, well, this is a private property. You can walk in, but you can't drive in. And we said, well, how far is the waterfall? Oh, it's just up the road. Right. It was 4.5 miles with our backpacks, and each way there and back. It was a 9-mile hike. It was a tough day.
Was the waterfall worth it?
It was spectacular.
Oh,
but
good.
Because it was getting dark, we only had an hour to paint it, and they had to get back because we knew we'd be walking through the woods in the dark.
Oh no.
As it turned out, we didn't get back till like 8 or 9 o'clock anyway.
I'm glad the waterfall was worth it. There's nothing worse than getting excited about painting something after seeing an image of it and then getting there and being disappointed in the real life thing.
Well, it was worth it, but we could only get about 4 people there because it was so rocky. So thankfully, there were only 5 of us, so it worked out. If we'd have taken 50 people, it would have been a disappointment. So you're even making highlights on the rock by wiping them out.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, I use this paper towel as a
You're doing great, and you've still got 15 minutes, and you're doing a really nice underpainting.
Oh, good. Well, that was the key. I mean, like I said, with the waterfall, the main thing that I do is the underpainting, and that's I don't see a whole lot of folks in workshops with a lot of experience doing that, so I'm guessing it's not something everyone does. But it is something that I really encourage, especially with something like waterfalls, because you get a chance to think so much about your design, keep stepping back. And because this is quick, it's easy to kind of push and pull things. I can, if I don't like something's shape, I can adjust it with a paper towel. I can change it right back. It's so easy that I don't have to even scrape.
No big commitment.
Yeah, it gets rid of that tension that we sometimes feel about losing the work that we have on the canvas. So
Everybody should put the comments where their favorite waterfalls are. So if somebody near you sees it, maybe they'll go
yes,
waterfall hunting this weekend.
There's some great places you can find in most states in the U.S. There's at least something. You can always, of course, you can always find a putt place, but
Right.
where I live, there's a beautiful fall called Cumberland Falls. It's a state park about an hour and a half away.
I've been to Cumberland Falls.
Oh, you have? Wow. Yeah.
I grew up in the Midwest, and we used to go down there.
It is beautiful. And the cool thing about Cumberland Falls is during several points of the year, they have something called a moonbow. And I think there are only a handful of places in the world that have this, where you can actually know when it's going to take place.
Rainbow from a full moon?
Yes. So place in the sky at a certain time of the evening. And it happens, I guess like 2 or 3 times a year.
Kathleen, your camera just went black. Maybe you need to touch your phone.
Moonbow.
Kathleen, can you hear me?
And I've seen photos of it, and I have friends who've done it. I've not, but that's on the list.
Kathleen. Hello, Kathleen.
Did my video cut out?
Yeah.
Oh, let's see what happened.
Hang on.
Let me try. Let me come back on here.
I think it timed out because it probably just went dark. Hang on. We're getting her back on.
Well, what I'll do.
There. Well, she disappeared. Now she's going to come back. So thank you for your patience. I appreciate it. Well, I hope everybody's going to have a great weekend. This is a great weekend to do stuff and get out. Hopefully you can get out. Obviously, it's summertime here in the U.S. And man, I just can't believe the summer has gone by so quickly. It's kind of like this was a summer that never was. But it's just so beautiful in the summertime. And I'm kind of waiting for the fall color, just starting to get a little touch of it. And that fall color, we're starting to see a few colorful leaves. And here she's coming back. Hang on a second. Okay, you're still screen black. Can you hear me?
Yes. Oh, that's so strange. Let's
turn your camera the other way. Maybe it.
Yeah.
Nope.
That is strange. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. So that's good.
This is proof that this is live.
Oh man. I tried signing out and signing in. Let me go ahead and do that again.
Maybe, yeah, check your camera. I don't know maybe there's something with your camera. It should, I can't tell you. I don't know what to do, quite frankly. Man, technology. Maybe you turn your camera off somehow. Well, okay, so here I am. This is me stalling. Okay, we'll go to the comments and see what you guys have to say. We'll just kind of randomly chat. So Snoqualmie Falls in Washington State, Multnomah Falls near Portland. That one's tough because that's really, really tall. So you got to probably zoom in on it. Let's see here. We have a swimming hole. Here she is. All right.
Good.
You're back.
Okay, let's set this camera back up. And
maybe you can get it a little closer.
Yeah, I don't know if I can zoom in.
Okay, it's all right. You're fine.
Great.
You're fine.
Yeah, so you can see here again, this is a finished waterfall painting. Yeah.
All right, so we could still go for about 10 or 11 more minutes.
Great. Okay.
Okay. You're doing great.
Oh, good. Well, I can get some more value on some of these falls. I will try to scoot up a little bit. Let's see if I can move this camera without knocking it over. Okay.
That's good. Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Yes. So I'm doing this is a mashup of a few different waterfalls. And now I'm dropping in some darks. Again, this is just this transparent mixture of ultramarine blue and transparent red oxide. And together in just about even amounts, they make a nice neutral. But what I can do is push it a little bit more towards warm or cool in places, depending on what I see. So that's helpful when I want to go ahead and test out some different color temperatures in the early stages of a painting. So that's the base of the falls. I'm actually going to knock that value down a little bit. It's a little too bright, so I can just drag the brush over it a little bit. That's something I could always do later too, but if I want to test out things exactly the way they'll be, then go ahead and make that decision now. And that way when I step back, go ahead.
Yeah, it feels very luminous already.
Oh, good. Well, that is the goal. So I'll put a couple of highlights on the rocks. And I've got several different reference images for this that I'm working from, and I can post them as comments as soon as I'm done. And I will, but I'm making it a total mashup because I don't want to commit to one specific reference image.
I also like how you've got the rocks pointing towards the falls.
Yes,
Rock to the
and
left.
they're naturally doing some of that, but what I'm doing is emphasizing what I see. I like that effect, so I'm going to, without making the shapes too stacked, too even, I do want to create some interest there and have it guide your eye in towards this focal area. Yeah. One thing I want to be wary of is not making this rock too round or too dark compared to the light. That's one thing I don't like about my photographs is that this rock stands out too much. It's just, like it's a painting about a rock rather than about a fall. So I could change the shape of the rock a little bit or just lighten it and pretend that there's a lot of mist kicked up, and that'll de-emphasize.
Yeah, that makes a pretty big difference.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, those are the kinds of things that you can do. That's one beauty of painting waterfalls is you can paint it in a way that you could never photograph a fall, just because the highlights always get washed out or you lose detail in the shadows of the rocks, since you almost always use the full value range. So the darkest darks are here, and then there are a couple areas down here in the shadow sides of these rocks that are just about the darkest on the value scale. So I'll pay attention to that. And I can keep designing some of these rocks with the underpainting. I won't get to the whites here necessarily in the course of a 40-minute demo.
Yeah, so maybe you could post the finished painting on the page in comments.
I'd love to.
That'd be great.
So yeah, but there's enough information here that you're starting, you can see some of the shapes emerge. It's starting to look like the final painting will. There will be some differences where I've adjusted things. This is looking too dark to me as well. So I can take the paper towel, erase a few highlights, and soften some edges, and then it doesn't stand out quite as much. So yeah.
So since we're kind of down to the last 5 or 6 minutes, talk about how what you would be doing to kind of take this to the next level to do finish on it.
Yes. So what I would do is I keep a mirror right here in the studio, and I will look at this in reverse and see how the design stands up. So what I noticed when I first stare at that is this shadow shape is kind of jumping out at me, which isn't usually a good sign. So I will blend that back a little bit, soften that edge, maybe drop it down. And then
and tell people why eliminating a sharp edge like that is important.
Your eye is drawn to areas of high contrast, so dark versus light, and it's drawn towards sharp edges and towards bright colors. So there are a few different things that we can do to draw the eye. This is not in my focal area. My focal area is back here. So I don't want super sharp lines or really high points of high contrast in areas that aren't the focal area. So it's a matter of trying to kind of use restraint in the areas of the canvas that I don't want people to look at first.
I want to point out also, if you look at the waterfall as it's coming down on the left, there's a little tiny rock in there in the middle of it.
Over here.
Right. Yeah, right in there. That one of the little one. If that were a human figure, it would make that waterfall look like it's 60 feet tall.
Yes. Well, and that's something that I do sometimes is pop, if there's a person there, that can be a great thing to give you a sense of scale.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there are some of these, some features of nature are so immense that you really need something there to give you a sense of just how, large and how vast it is. So that's not a bad idea.
Hey, we have our first visitor from Pakistan. Sahor, welcome, Sahor. Hey, this is exciting.
That is awesome. Gone global. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. So yeah, thinking about
Egypt is watching.
Wonderful.
Yeah, you're just pulling them in. You're pulling in a big audience.
Well, thank you for joining.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can catch right at the end. So what we're talking about is how to make small adjustments. We've got a few minutes left, and this is a transparent underpainting. So the whites that you see again are just ones that I've lifted off of the oil primed canvas with a paper towel and some Yamsol. And what I would do next, once I'll go through and I will tweak sections of it, find a few places for highlights, make a lot of these composition judgments in this stage while it's still really easy. And then I set aside half an hour or so to mix big piles of paint. That way I can, I look at some of the different families, like I would have maybe 5 different colors of, and different values of rock paint, and then have some grays developed for the waterfall. And the most color you'll see right here, there's some moss, so there will be some greens picked up on the rocks. So I'll have some rich greens, and then there's a section where you can see a little bit of turquoise right at the base of these falls, and it's muted. It's not like a pure cobalt turquoise, but it will give a sense of color. And the thing is, with most of this being fairly grayscale, even just a little hint of color will make it kind of stand out and look more colorful. So I'm not going to have any pure color anywhere in this, but I'll have enough in places that it will, it'll make it kind of pop a little bit. So yeah, those are things that I will think about. So like I said, the next stage is going to be mixing big piles of paint. The reason that I do that is so I can see the paint harmonize on the palette, and if it all looks good together, then it'll look good on the canvas.
Great.
So that's helpful.
All right. Well,
this
has been terrific.
Well, thank you. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, it's great. And Charlie Hunter would say, "Hey, it's done."
He would. And, he's a smart man, because there are many times when I will be excited about the underpainting and then I ruin it. So yeah, Charlie's got a good thing going.
And there's nothing wrong with using an underpainting as a finished painting.
No.
You can certainly put whatever you need in there to create a finished painting. I mean, it reads so beautifully. So absolutely. Makes a lot of sense. Well, Kathleen, you'll post the final painting for us.
I will. Yes.
I want to remind everybody that Kathleen's brand new video is out today, Clouds and Distance, and she painted this big thunderstorm and how she did that. Make sure that you share this. If you liked this program today, share it, because that's how we pick up people from Egypt and India, Pakistan, Sweden, Norway, etc. It's really helpful when you guys share it so that your friends see it and they may want to paint along or learn. We've had so many people, Kathleen, who have started painting again because they've been watching this and it's inspired them, or they've been watching the 3 p.m. and it's inspired them. People who haven't painted for years have picked it up again. People who are picking it up for the first time. So it's pretty exciting to see. We're trying to keep people positive instead of negative with all the craziness.
Yes, well, it's good to hear people are picking it back up too. And there's, it's never too late to start. And when you've got all these great learning resources, you know, there should be nothing standing in your way.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Kathleen. How about everybody thumbs up and applause for Kathleen Hudson? And be sure to watch her today at 3 o'clock. Kathleen, I'm going to say goodbye to you now, and then I'm going to wrap up. So thanks again, and hopefully we'll see you soon. I sent you a note this morning about, I know you're going to be in San Antonio, so for a workshop. I don't know if that's still taking place, but if it does,
it is.
Maybe we'll have you come by the world famous artist cabin for a bit.
Let's do it.
All right. Thanks.